Hello boys and girls, welcome to my channel. I'm for Classic and welcome to BenchART. So for today what I do have needed is the Outer Worlds 2 running on my RX 6700 XT and my Ryzen 5 3600X. Alright, so this is another Unreal Engine 5 title. In fact, this is Unreal Engine 5.4, which is pretty cool. Although it is also another, unfortunately, Unreal Engine open world title where we can't handle 60 frames per second. I tried to understand if it was only me, but apparently Digital Foundry Alex Battaglia did uncover the same thing as I did, which is the Ryzen 5 3600 can't really nail this game at 60 frames per second. Even if you go with the lowest settings possible, using the lowest upscaling possible, the CPU will bottleneck, especially when crossing up these town areas that you have of the game. The beginning of the game it was pretty smooth since it was a linear experience, but as soon as I got to open worlds, I immediately noticed that the frame rate was tanking, especially again on this town area. Dropping down to medium does help with the, with the bottleneck that I'm having with this CPU, but unfortunately it is not enough to perform above than 60. Alright, it just helps like 5 frames per second or something, but you will notice a downgrade, especially on the VM distance of the winds of the grass. But let's just say that outside these areas the game runs mostly above than 60 frames per second, so it is by far my best settings for playing at 1080p. It is to use 1080p high using TSR at 66%. Hell, I might even recommend you to go with 75% since we are having bottleneck, so I don't think that you will have any issues by raising the internal resolutions coming, since the CPU it is the issue in here. Although if you have a different CPU, if you have a capable CPU paired up with this GPU, probably 1080p high with TSR 66% will provide you an experience always and above 60 frames per second. Fortunately, one of the things that I've immediately noticed is that this game barely stutters, which is something very good, but unfortunately that is at the cost of the CPU, so the first boot that you have in this game, it seems that the game does compile the shaders in the background, which costs a little bit of CPU time. Okay, so as usual this is my split in here for settings that I don't recommend. So what I do have in here is 1080p high settings with native resolution on the left. As it seems on the town the performance is pretty much the same as with upscaling, and on the right 1080p max settings with no ray tracing, hardware ray tracing, because that is an option for hardware ray tracing and it is super demanding. And well, my system can't even handle the game above than 30 frames per second without hardware ray tracing. So with hardware ray tracing, things are even worse. So for 1440p, my recommendation it is for you to go with the median settings with TSR at 57%. So for some reason, sometimes when I do enter on this game, it does stutter. So when I told you about the draw distance of the grass, this is what happens. So when you are running close to the grass, you'll notice that there is a lot of popping. This also happens in the console versions. For example, Xbox Series S, X and PS5. When using the performance mode, it does have the same behavior with the grass, which is quite distracting. Hopefully this will get patched when it gets released. But what really pisses me off with this game is that there is one thing that I have been very constant since I have been doing this kind of benchmarks on YouTube. I have been doing these kinds of benchmarks for 14 years, and I was always kind of the low-end and mainstream guy. And I always had systems that were very close to the consoles. So one of the things that I always noticed is that when the CPU starts to get old, consoles with similar specs tend to perform good, and PCs tend to perform bad. It's like optimization, it is being very well done for the consoles when they start to get to its end of life, while on the PC things just take the south. Okay, it starts to be unoptimized. I'm saying this because both Xbox Series S, I mean, let's focus on the Series S, which is the weakest console. It can nail this game at 60 frames per second. Even inside the town areas, it runs at 60 frames per second. Okay, and it is an Xbox Series S. Because the limitation, it is the CPU. Okay, and also the Xbox Series X, the stronger one, also runs at 60. I think that only the PS5 have a little bit of issues with the town area, but even so, we are talking about 57 frames per second, not 48 like I have. And from what I've seen from Alex from Digital Foundry, even if you have 8 cores with 16 threads, which is something that the consoles have, you barely have extra performance. So what I'm trying to say by this is that consoles continues to benefit from additional optimization when it comes to the CPU. There is something on their APIs or operating systems that makes them more optimized in that sense compared to the PC. This happens in some games. I've seen these in the PS3 generation, I have seen these on the PS4 generation, and it continues to be a thing in PS5. So sometimes it makes me wondering why I'm choosing PC over consoles, because I do like to have hardware that lasts, and PCs, when it gets to these areas, they don't really last. So I know that I've talked a lot in here about things, and I skipped a little bit over the video, but essentially, like I was telling you, for 1440p median settings, it is my recommendation. Okay, and for 4K, my recommendation, it is also median, but you should use TSR at 50%, which is essentially upscaling from 1080p to 4K. There will be also a setting for 4K high settings using TSR at 50%. That is a recommendation if you want to play at 30 frames per second, and that's about it. So I'm a little bit sad when it comes to this optimization thing. Hopefully, when the game gets released, which will be in 4 days, counting by the time of the day that I'm recording this video, hopefully there will be some additional optimizations for the PS5 version that seems to have a little bit of issues with the town, but especially for the PC CPU optimization, because looking to the CPU is at around 50 to 60%, sometimes 70. It seems like there is in near more on the table to be used. And it seems to be related with the threads, not the physical cores. So probably it could take advantage a little bit better of this, but at the same time, I'm not so sure about it. Okay, so when I did enter the game recommended me to play at median settings with VM distance on high. I do think that's the recommended thing for the recommended requirements of the game, and the recommended requirements of the game, it does well. Recommended Ryzen 5 50600X, which is something that we don't have, and it's weaker. So guys, I think that's all that I want to talk about the Outer Worlds 2. Again, another Unreal Engine 5 open world where we can't nail the 60, which for me is very important. I know that for many people it's okay to have these drops, but for me, I always want to play at 60 unless it's a game like a third person or a very small paced game, which is something that the Outer Worlds 2, it's not really like that. Okay, so I will let you enjoy a little bit of gameplay at 4K high with TSR at 57%. Hope you did enjoy the video, and I do hope to see you soon. Goodbye.
Ah, hell. I've stood this post so many times I could do it in less.
Don't go into that cheap saloon if you got a lick of gumption. They got no tolerance for it. Why do you think I'm out here?
These incessant jingles over the loudspeakers. Do they ever cease?
Nope. You probably hear them in your dreams. They haven't already.
Best keep your lamps lit for wildlife.
Hostile wildlife. Familial classification of Radeon. Detected ahead.
I swear that wasn't planned. Feels good to be back in the saddle, don't it, Val? Kinda reminds me of our days in Nix's orbit. Dodge and Protectorate patrols. You remember that?
Error. Memory not found.
Ah, well. That's all right, Val. I'll just have to do the remembering for both of us. On your command.